Hello, it's me, and I've remembered to unmute. I only gave myself a few seconds of not being able to be heard. We are doing a Key Stage 3 lesson today, and we're going to be doing all sorts of different things, looking at travel graphs, distance time graphs. Before we do that, we're going to have a start on the screen just so I can say a couple of hellos. There's a few people in the chat, and then we'll move straight on. So the first thing to do is bring up the starter, which should be on your screen right about now. And can you use those four numbers to make 79? Good afternoon, Aaron. Good afternoon, Eddie and Bella. If you are Bella, good afternoon, Bella. If not, then please do put your name next to any messages you put in so that I can obviously say hello and good afternoon to you. Sorry I wasn't here this morning if anyone was here this morning. There were technical difficulties that have now been resolved. I do apologise. So, I'll leave you doing that for a couple of more seconds. If you want to, feel free, obviously, you can pause the video or come back to it later. And I will tell you, there is a way of doing this, which is as follows. If you cleverly take the 1 away from the 6 first, and maybe put that as in brackets, you can do 6 take away 1 is 5. 5 lots of 20 is 100. Then if you take away the 21, you're left with 79. You just needed to use the 6 take away the 1 first to get 5 lots of 20, take away the 21. I don't know if there's another way of doing it. I haven't seen another way of doing it. So I think that's the way of doing it, is doing a clever little 6 take away 1 first. So let's move on. We have a request. Please do consider sending me work you do. I always like to see it. Obviously yours will be a bit more advanced than this, but send me some work to the Facebook page or to my email, and I'll happily include it in different things. This is not an algebra substitution. I don't know why I've still got that on there. I must have borrowed it from another thing. And then you've got Mr. Harris should be appearing on your screen and saying hello. So we're going to be talking about travel graphs. Now, in a travel graph, you always have 2 axes. You always have up the side, you always have the distance, and along the bottom, you always have the time. Never the other way round. Time always goes along the bottom and distance goes up the side. Now, I would like you to listen to a little story before I continue. Now, my little story is one that you won't have heard before. It's a true story based on some friends I had when I was at university. These friends were called Tommy the Tortoise and Harriet Hare. Now, Tommy the Tortoise and Harriet Hare, you won't know them, but back when I was at university, and animals used to go to university as well, they were quite competitive with each other. They were really argumentative. We were all good friends, but they were quite... The thing is, Harriet was really quite, like, arrogant, I'd say, maybe. And she used to be like, oh, I'm the best at running. I'm so good at running. And Tommy the Tortoise, he was a bit more laid back. He was like, you're not so good at running. And she was like, no, I'm the best at running. I can run so fast. And Tommy was like, no, I would beat you in a race. And Harriet would always be like, you're not going to beat me in a race. I'm so fast. And Tommy was like, no, I would beat you in a race. I would just run faster than you. And so they kind of agreed to have this race. And I've said, well, look, do you want me to sort it out for you? I'll like police it. We worked out a route. We worked out what time we did it one evening. We said, look, 10 miles. They were a bit faster than you might think. Tommy Tortoise and Harriet Hare were quite fast. So we said we'll do it over a number of miles, and we'll do it late in the sort of late evening, in the middle of summer. So it was like nice and sunshine. And anyway, we set off. They set off. We had the start line. I was like, go. And Harriet Hare was like, zoom. I'm gonna beat you, and zoomed off into the distance. Meanwhile, Tommy Tortoise was just like, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. Just sort of steadily marching, right foot, left foot, right foot, left. They just carried on this sort of marching. And Harriet Hare sort of got to a point, and you could see she was miles ahead. And then she kind of zoomed back, as if came zooming back and went, ha 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 ha, look, I'm so much faster than you, I'm going to zoom off again, bye, and then zooms off again. Meanwhile, just right foot, left foot, right. Anyway, after several miles, she came to this bench by a river, and she was like, oh my God, the sun's kind of coming down, I'm just going to sit on the bench for a second, I'm going to win this race easy. And she's like, I'm going to win, this is so good. She sat on the bench, promptly fell asleep. I know you're thinking, oh my God, she fell asleep. What? Oh no. It's like, yeah, it's just because she's. The thing is, she'd been zooming. I probably had too many Red Bulls. She'd been zooming. Meanwhile, Tommy Torres was just like, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, and eventually they like got to the bench, carried on past, right foot, left foot, right foot, carried on past, and got to the finish line. Meanwhile, she wakes up, looks behind her. Where is he? Oh, I can't see him any. Suddenly sees him at the finish line. Oh no! Zooms to try and catch up. Can't catch up because there's too much to do. And Tommy the Tortoise ended up winning, and he was known as the sort of the athletics champion at our university for a long, long time after that. But anyway, why am I telling you this story? It's obviously a completely new story. You never heard this story. A completely true story happened to me when I was at university with these two people, or animals, or half people, half animals. Anyway, this is why I'm showing you. If I just disappear myself for a second. Here are the graphs, because that's what we're talking about today. And look, if we match the colour with each per thing, you can see the green line is just the line for the toys. We can see the race started at 7 o'clock. The reason I know the race started at 7 o'clock is because you can always tell from these distance time graphs how things are progressing. The slope tells you how fast something is moving. You remember I said right foot, left foot. The Tommy Tortoise just travelled at the same speed the whole journey. So Tommy Tortoise's line is just green all the way, just a straight line, smooth. Meanwhile, the hare did run at some points faster. And you can see distance, and then the bit where it slopes down, she's actually running back again towards him. So it's not total miles travelled, it's distance from the start. I should probably have written on the axis, shouldn't I? And then they come back and you can see the point where they're together again. And then the flat bit, a flat bit means it's asleep. Now if I could draw a bit better, it would be completely flat. You can see it goes up slightly. But that flat line is where she's asleep. Flat lines mean you're not moving on a distance time graph. And as you can see, that point where there's a cross is the place where they overlap each other. And that's because the tortoise is overtaking, basically. And you can see the finish line indicates the race was 9 miles long. The reason I know that is because the tortoise only stopped when he reached the finish line. Tommy Tortoise only stopped when he reached the finish line. And that happens after 9 miles. And you can see that by reading up the miles and reading across to where it stops. And you can see she did reach 9 miles. Harriet reached 9 miles, but a bit later. I think if I remember rightly, it was about nearly 11 o'clock when she finally got there. Because she'd had a little sleep, a little snooze. Now, hopefully you can see, by seeing the silly story, I know it's a bit of a silly story, but hopefully the story makes the graph make sense. And all travel graphs have this story you can tell about them. Not always the most interesting of stories, but they all have different stories you can tell about them. Now, I'm going to now speak to you basically about the key points that I really think you should probably write down. Feel free to pause the video or come back to this bit and make these notes. But I think you should make the notes to yourself that in a travel graph, along is always time, and up the side is always distance. A flat line, you can see them on the remember bit here. The steeper lines means faster travel. If it's steeper, it's faster. Less steep means slower. And if it's flat, it means stationary, means we're not moving. Now, the only thing you sometimes get is downward lines. That does not mean we're travelling downhill. It's got nothing to do with hills at all. It means we're travelling back towards the start instead of travelling away from the start. So in these graphs, what we're talking about, here's another one. What we now need to do is describe what this coach is doing. So a coach is travelling on the road, and we would need to think, well, what is this coach doing? I think there are 5 phases to this coach journey. Between the first hour, I think it travels 40 miles. And the reason, what we can then do is we can even work out a speed. Speed is found by dividing the distance by the time. And you can read up, you see 1 hour is 40 kilometres, so it's 40 kilometres an hour. Then it stops. Remember, flat lines means it stops. Maybe it's doing a pickup. Maybe it's waiting for something. Maybe they just stopped for a toilet break for an hour or some lunch. Then it sets off again, but we can even add some more to our story. And when you're writing the story of travel graphs, make sure you do like a little paragraph or an explanation of what you're saying. So here, between 2 and 3 o'clock, it travels, but it travels slower than before. It only travels 20 kilometres. Maybe it's in traffic. Maybe it's driving through the centre of a big town. But then from 3 till 3:30, it massively zooms up. You can see it goes 30 kilometres in just half an hour, which is 60 kilometres an hour. Much quicker. Maybe it's got moved onto a motorway. Maybe it's moved onto a much faster road, an A road or something like that. So that's when, and you can see the last section is at 3:30 it stops again. And maybe that's just, the journey's finished maybe. It could be that they've reached their destination. It could be another rest stop. We don't know. But this is how you take a travel graph and describe the journey. Now, if anyone has any questions who is watching live, do feel free to put them in the live chat or in the description below. If you're not watching this live and you're watching this over the next few months or even in a year, 2, 3 years time, feel free to write questions if there's anything you don't understand here. What we're trying to say is that the steep lines is the fastest travel, and you can always read up how far you travel by drawing up from the base and going along. Now, finally, I've just been in the way the whole of that time. Let's go back to the thing and get myself out of the way. Oh, no, I should have mentioned something there, shouldn't I? Here we can see 5 bits of the journey. Sorry I was in the way. I didn't even notice. You can now see the graph I was talking about. And the graph I was talking about here should show you what all the phases I was talking about. You can see this first slope is where the coach sets off and is travelling 40 kilometres in 1 hour. Then it's stationary because it's flat. Then it's travelling up, but it's not as steep, so it's not as fast. And then I had the fastest bit, which was maybe a motorway or a road, and then it's flat again. This was the graph I was trying to talk about. I'm sorry I was in the way. I sometimes forget to turn myself off. So, the final thing we want to talk about is making these graphs ourselves. So, if we have a journey, how would we go about doing that? So, before I go here, let's go straight into my other screen, which should be my whiteboard. And I should be able to do a journey with you. So here we are. And I have my empty grid. So we know from our learning from this lesson that distance is always up the side and time is along the bottom. So if we're doing a journey, let's say we're doing a journey to school and we've got 1 mile. Now notice how the scale has to always be steady. Like 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. 1, 2, 3. You cannot have a different number of squares in between the lines. You certainly can't go 1, 2, 4. We would always go 1, 2, 3 because I can't count. These would be in kilometres. So let's say our school is 3 kilometres from school. Our school is 3 kilometres. We're going back to school. Let's hope that happens soon, hey? And the first part of the journey, the first kilometre, is steady. Okay? And then it's from this bit, it's stationary. Then it's super fast. Then it's steady again. And then we get to school and rest there. Let's think about why I might have drawn a journey like that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put little dots on every time the speed changes. So you can really see why things have changed. Now here, let's put some story behind it, because this is the whole idea of this. Tell the story behind it. Well, this is us walking to school. So I'm going to put walk on these two. Why would we go faster than the walking bit? Well, maybe we catch a bus. Maybe we do that bit by bus. We walk to the bus stop and we walk from the bus stop to school, which just leaves the one bit in the middle. What would be happening here? Well, I think between the walking to the bus stop and the bus arriving is just waiting for the bus. And this is called annotating the graph. Drawing the little things waiting for the bus, but the bus is travelling, walking, and we can see the bus is the fastest, which is why it's steeper. This is flat, therefore this bit must be waiting, and this bit's flat, so this bit must be stationary as well. So we're like in a classroom at school. So you can see how the travel graph links to the events going on, and we're able to tell the story of it. We can even start adding numbers to it. For example, let's say that was 30, 60, 90 minutes. So we can see we walk for 30 minutes. We then wait for the bus for about 15 minutes. So that's about 45. And then the bus journey is another 15 minutes, because that takes us to 60. Then we walk a final 15 minutes. And then finally, we're at school after that. So you can see how this might be applied with numbers on the bottom as well. Hopefully that makes sense to you. What I've now done is I have done a travel graph worksheet. It's in the description below. Complete that, and at the same time as that, why not complete the Corbett Maths 5 a day? If you go to Corbett Maths, type in Corbett Maths 5 a day, find the one that's the right level for you. It might be foundation, it might be everyday, secondary, and there's various different levels on there. Find the one that works for you. Completing those every day is a really good way to stay in your maths and improve day by day. So I recommend that today, as it also complete the one for 6th of January. Now, if you're not watching live, and I know lots of people will see this later rather than live, don't do the 6th of January. Do the one that's relevant for your day to day. Whatever day it is you're watching it, they keep that up to date all the time, so you can always find one that's relevant. Even if you're in a different country, I believe you're still going to be able to find the Corbett Maths website and be able to do that. I'd love to see pictures of the work you've done so far today. The worksheet has 3 questions on it. I'd love to see your graphs that you draw. I'd love to see your attempts. I'd love to see your interpretations of what's going on. So please do send pictures to the Facebook group if your parents want to join the Facebook group for the School of Mr. Harris, or send me an email. And then there's this Taskmaster Challenge for this week. So I want a poster, an inspirational poster to include in some of my videos. So if anyone has a quote that they like or something with an inspirational poster, I'd love to see it. Hopefully this lesson has been something where you've learned something, except for the bit where my face was in the way. I hope you've got a lot out of it. Sorry it was late. It will normally be Mondays and Fridays that you get your maths lessons. There'll be always a Key Stage 3 lesson on Monday on Friday aimed at Year 7, 8, 9. So I'll always try and do that. I might try and do a few bonus ones on a Wednesday if I get time. But obviously I'm very, very busy trying to do online lessons as well. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it made sense to you. Feel free to put questions below. If you did like it, if you did enjoy it, if you did feel you learned something, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Please share it with other people. The more people who join, the more people who get some learning out of it. I've been Mr. Harris. You haven't. Thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on a future lesson.